Welcome back to our conversation with the District Attorney of Suffolk County, Rachael Rollins. And Rachael, we talked in our first segment about the uptick in gang violence. What, if any, concerns do you have more broadly across Suffolk County about rising crime of all kinds as a result of the crisis we're living through? And can you be, I mean, maybe this is premature, but are there any specific areas, whether they be domestic violence, gun violence, theft, that you're particularly concerned about?
Well, there's definitely been an uptick in gun violence, which we are deeply concerned about. I've had many discussions with my Crime Strategies Bureau, Mayor Walsh, and of course, Commissioner Gross. In April of 2020, we saw over 20 gun violence involved incidents, and back in April of 2019, we only had 10. So we've seen an uptick there. We've seen an uptick as well, John, in domestic violence, and we believe it's even higher than the uptick we've seen, because with the fact that we're all in our homes, this is a ticking time bomb, essentially, for victims of domestic violence, children who are abused and neglected. We've seen a large decline in the calls coming in for abuse and neglect of children, and we know that's not true. With children being homeschooled, they're no longer getting the eyes and ears and love of teachers and mandated reporters to let the Department of Children and Families know when there are problems. So I'm concerned about the uptick in gun violence, what looks like a decrease in child abuse and neglect, even though we know that's not true, and what we believe is an even more significant increase in domestic violence than the numbers actually show.
Well, what's the answer to this? I mean, does this add urgency to the calls for easing and lifting the stay-at-home orders and reopening of schools?
What I think it does is calls for us to make sure we are funding these programs that assist overwhelmingly women, but men and others that are in abusive relationships, overwhelmingly poor people that are finding themselves where they need social services to get the assistance. So we have to make sure we're funding those and that we're thinking creatively. Because remember, John, you can't zoom into a home if you are a victim of domestic violence. You have to physically go there to flee the person that's harming you. So we have to make sure that we are thinking of great solutions, like maybe some of the hotels that are empty and aren't getting residents in there. If our mayors and governors are thinking about domestic violence shelters, as well as shelters for children that are abused and neglected, having families move into some of these empty hotels. We've seen that happening around the country. We have to adapt better for the most vulnerable of us who need our help.
Well, we're almost out of time here, but we do have a lot of politicians, legislators, sometimes even the governor, who watch this segment on Sunday mornings. The state budget, as you know, has collapsed. Yep. There are going to be a lot of legitimate competing demands on the funding that you just said is going to be so important to addressing these issues you're raising. Want to try out your elevator pitch to Beacon Hill on why your agenda should be at the top of their list?
Well, because it's all of our agenda, John. It's not just a criminal justice issue. We're seeing now with COVID-19 the intersectionality of all these different sectors. And the people who are losing, John, when you read the paper, are overwhelmingly poor people, are veterans, which are the treatment of them we've seen in the news is awful at some of the soldiers' homes in Holyoke and Chelsea. But I have faith in our governor and in our legislature that they're going to do what's right. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, though, I want to make sure we are talking about what happened in Georgia with the arrest, thank goodness, of the two individuals that executed a young man who his birthday would have been on Friday, May 8th. So I hope when people are watching this Sunday, that they all went out and walked on Friday, May 8th in honor of Ahmaud, who was executed. And you know, what we need is really strong elected officials, and I'm really proud we have some great ones in Massachusetts.
You have your work cut out for you. We'll look forward to talking with you again sooner rather than later.
Excellent. Be well.
Thank you. Rachael Rollins, District Attorney of Suffolk County.